Okay, let's start by saying spell your name for me.
Jeremy Fall, Jeremy, Fall, Fall.
Okay, and so what do you do?
What do I do?
Yeah.
Fuck do I know? You seem confused.
What do you mean by culture brand?
So if I were to compare what Probably Nothing is to an existing brand, I would say the way Supreme represented skate culture in the early 90s is what we're doing with Probably Nothing. As you know, Probably Nothing is a coined term that we actually own. And our goal is to represent the Web3 community in the best way possible and also integrate our Web2 background and business acumen into the space. For example, our latest venture is Probably a Label, which is a Web3 major label in collaboration with Warner Records. The handsome fellow that you see back there is actually our counterpart at Warner Records. So that's Seb right there. Through that, we do educational content, we onboard people into the space, we do drops and collaborations with other brands.
Okay, so I'm going to start with a question I usually ask at the very end.
Yes, this is my real jawline.
What is Web 4?
Web 4?
Yeah.
Fuck, we're trying to figure out what Web 3 is. Why are we looking at Web 4? Are you trying to rebrand this?
That was it right there. I asked so many people that question. I had one guy go, teleportation. That was good.
No.
No, that was the most incredible soundbite to that question.
Perfect, yeah.
Basically, I'm saying, what is the future?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into Web 3. What the fuck is Web 3?
Web 3, so I have an opinion that has been controversial for most. Web 3, as we describe it, is impossible. My reasoning for that is, if we look at Web3 as full decentralization, meaning that everything is fully decentralized, it is impossible to gain mass adoption. When a brand in the space becomes big, and we've seen this with Yuga Labs, right? It's good to have centralization. You need centralization, you need checks and balances, you need people to come in that know how to run businesses. You cannot have these companies that are funded through NFTs with multiples, millions of dollars, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars, and expect full decentralization. There's reasons why some businesses exist and others don't, and some last and others don't. It is the team, it's the vision, it's people that feel an emotional connection to what they're doing. You need that to run a successful brand and business. So when you talk about Web3 and you look at full decentralization, it's just not possible. We're going to end up at a Web 2.5. I think that Web 2 was, the culture was created by the creators, and now Web3 is taking that culture back, and creators are taking ownership back, and they can, do drops, and they can communicate with their audiences and be their own studio, be their own label, whatever it is. But when we achieve mass adoption, like I said, and when those businesses scale, there needs a point where there will be centralization that comes back in. Again, you guys are a perfect example. Arguably one of the most, if not the most successful NFT project in the space. As they grew, valued at $4 billion, and they've become centralized. They need to have that level of infrastructure.
Okay, let me check your audio just to make sure. Okay. So most beginners into this field think NFT, baseball card, capitalize.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you get into it a little bit, and kind of in the beginnings, it was allowing artists to be better artists because they didn't have to worry about who was taking their percentage, and they just kind of could focus on their art and know, hey, I'm going to make some money off of this. And now we're moving towards small businesses kind of doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Commodities, you have, the Indian tea grower who has 2 acres can sell to a tea shop in Seattle.
Yeah.
And we're kind of moving towards a different mindset of what NFTs are. Okay, and so part of this is kind of word salad, not so much a question, but
Mm-hmm.
where do you think that the next couple of years is headed in this space?
That's a great question. I think what people need to remember is that to have a healthy ecosystem, things need to coexist. People talk about like, what's the future? Is it art? Is it utility? Is it brands? Is it et cetera? But all those things need to coexist. You need to have the one-of-one artists that are mainstream, the one-on-one artists that are smaller, the brands that come, the Web 2 brands, the Web 3 native brands. You need all those different things. I think that where there's a disconnect in general is NFTs as the technology, right? A lot of it is we need this as a branding piece or whatever it is to stay relevant, and it's all about how are we going to mold into a PFP or mold into a pass, whatever it is. But really, the technology is what makes it interesting, right? I think we'll see sporting events use NFTs as tickets, concerts, the deed to your house, the deed to your car. Those are all tech-based, right? You can make the deed look as beautiful as possible, it doesn't really fucking matter. It's really about the technology. Then you have, artists that just use it as their medium, or artists that also that we don't really talk about is if, let's say, I paint a piece that's physical, the certificate of authenticity is a piece of paper. Like, people have Warhols that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, or whatever it is, $50 million, and they have the certificate of authenticity on a piece of paper, and we're living in the digital age. Like, that's fucking insane to me. Like, all of those uses are uses that we're not really talking about because they're not as like sexy, right? People want to talk about like, how's it going to be like integrate into celebrity and this and that and this brand made 11 million. But people should really be looking at the technology aspect of it.
Okay, that's interesting because you're kind of jumping forward in the questions I'm going to ask you. So
Right.
let me just jump right forward because I don't know how much space I
Yeah.
have. So let's talk about mass adoption.
Yes.
We all know what it is, but put it into simplistic terms for somebody who doesn't understand.
Mass adoption is the ability, or actually no, so mass adoption is the action of the general public, the mainstream, adopting the NFTs as technology or as in their everyday lives, for example. The same way you could say when social media started, we saw it with MySpace and et cetera. I don't think social media gained true mass adoption until Facebook came in, and Facebook became the internet's identity card. It became everyone had a Facebook. You can argue Instagram obviously grows from there, but that mass adoption is when you break that mainstream and, adopt the masses.
Okay, so how does government regulation or government support leveling the playing field? That always seems to be tied in when most people talk about mass adoption.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue right now is that there's a disconnect, right? It's a new technology. The people that are in government are generally a little bit older, not tech savvy. I mean, even if you look back to some of the early interviews with Congress and Mark Zuckerberg, they're just like, how do you exist? Like, how you don't make money? It's very much this transactional old sales kind of thought process. I think the core of the issue is defining what an NFT is, what category it's in, what blockchain is, because right now we're getting misinformation. Some people are saying that NFTs are securities when they're not yet. They're not classified as securities, but when you're making bold statements like that, you have to be able to back them. Others are saying they're a scam. There's so many different things. We need to identify what they are at the core, and people need to understand from a tech standpoint. Again, I think it comes down to technology. And as we grow, there's always going to be regulation. Government is going to want to regulate things, and I think regulation is fine. Where I think there is an issue is government trying to regulate something they don't understand, and that causes friction. That causes people in our space to be like, you don't even understand, and then it then hurts their credibility, where then you're having an argument about different things. People aren't listening to each other. I think government should talk to people like us in the Web3 space to try to better understand what it is and work towards that.
Okay, so I like kind of this term flipped on its side of adoption by the masses to describe what you were talking about, and to think of the original kind of, the government has to lay the playing field, we have to develop protocols. When those protocols are placed and they're universal, maybe there's two sets of protocols, but when protocols, and we're not in the Wild West anymore, mass adoption can occur, but that is government-controlled playing field that we're creating. At least that's my understanding of where that term originally came from. I like your definition of it, because it is about when the masses are willing to adopt it.
Yes.
And in many cases, the masses will adopt it without even knowing they're adopting it. They're not going to know their car title or their mortgage deed is being done this way. Okay, so my question is that if you have a set of protocols, none of us trust the fucking government. Okay?
Yeah.
So who's going to create these protocols? And is it a question of big corporations are finally going to come into the scene and say, okay, well, I hate this shit because it takes away our control of the little guy, but we can't avoid jumping in anymore, and these are our protocols, and suddenly you have these massive behemoth things saying, we've got these protocols and these protocols and these protocols, and then somebody says, okay, we have to kind of settle all this, and a set of protocols come forth through big corporations, or is there going to be an authoritarian, like ICANN, if you're familiar with it?
Of course,
okay?
very.
So where are we going to get those universal protocols, and what is the best way to approach that, whether it comes from one entity or it kind of morphs from all these other elements?
That is a fantastic question. Also, no one's ever asked me that. I honestly, I think it might be fragmented. I think the biggest thing is, ICANN is actually a really good example I've never thought of. The way I look is like, if you look at fine art, right? Fine art is an unregulated industry, completely, as of now, right? if you look at sneakers, like there are a lot of these things that are creative, and if you're looking at NFTs more on like the creative standpoint, right? These markets aren't regulated by government, right? You obviously have traditional entities and whatnot, like Nike, let's say for sneakers and whatnot, that are regulated. I don't think there needs to be one entity that figures everything out. I think it's going to be fragmented into industries that are each going to probably have siloed out protocols, is my thought, as it grows. But I also don't think that can happen overnight. I think that's going to take a while. I think government's going to try to control everything. I don't think it's going to be possible because I think there's so many uses. I think right now when we're talking about NFTs, we're like regulating NFTs. What we're not talking about is, are we regulating NFTs of the kid in another country that is just doing art and you want to regulate him? Or are you talking about a corporation trying to raise capital and using NFTs to raise $50 million? Because now it's fundraising, right? Now that could be seen as a security, right? You can't put them all in one bucket. And I think that's the biggest issue right now is that there's not going to be, it's impossible to regulate under one umbrella. It's going to have to be siloed out because the broad sense of it is the technology. The technology applies to so many different industries that there needs to be regulations. I mean, even if you look at social media, I'm pretty sure the FTC has different regulations in certain things. Like, it's not one regulation that anyone that posts a product, a cup of coffee, is getting fined. No, it's celebrities that are getting paid. There's like different nuances. It's not like black or white.
Okay, so when you talk to somebody at our level, or
Yeah, well, because you get it.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
But you're way beyond me. Okay, but when you have these kinds of conversations, people say government as if there's a one world government.
Yes.
Okay, right now Europe
broad.
has been driving. They drove the privacy issues.
Mm-hmm.
They're pushing iPhone to let go of the lightning cables.
Yep.
So you have this confidence in the U.S. dollar.
Yeah.
Because we all get up, go to work, pay our fucking taxes.
Yes.
Okay? So when you talk about government being a component of all this, and I absolutely agree with everything you say, but government has to be a component of it. So when you talk about government being a component of it, what fears or what optimism do you have towards what building blocks do you see?
Right.
How do you see government's involvement working, and we as citizens need to drive that, or government being government? Oh my God, they're
Right.
fucking it up.
Right. Well, I think government needs to adopt something before they start commenting on it. And I think government, and again, we have to define government, right? Like, some people define the government as the SEC or the president or, sorry, not the other one, IRS. Like, what do we define as government, right? Like, and I think they're all gonna have their different agendas because a lot of them also don't like each other. So that's where it gets complicated too. I really do think for those building blocks, each of those people need to adopt the technology. I think that the IRS absolutely can, the SEC absolutely can, and for political fundraising, for voting in the future, I think politicians absolutely can and will and already are adopting it. I think in order for them to really be able to get that respect, to be able to really understand, they really have to just use it. And I think those building blocks will come with time. I don't think it's going to be like, okay, because no one can say, you decide, right? It's also, we have to also remember that NFTs are worldwide. There's going to be countries involved. I mean, we know this, right? Like, blockchain is worldwide. Bitcoin, cryptocurrency in general is a universal currency. There's not going to be one answer for everything. It's not possible. There's different types of government, different layers, different levels, it's so siloed out that I just don't think we will have one big solution.
Okay, so a lot of people in this space, and I hate that term, but I still have to use it.
Enter the right way?
What?
I want to enter the right way?
No, I just hate using the word space.
Oh, the space, yeah, I know,
There's
after all
lack of
that.
better words, but because it covers everything. But
Bullish.
Yeah, a lot of people, they see this as okay. We started with baseball card mentality. I'm
Yeah.
capitalized. Now Ethereum has brought us technology, and then we're expanding and we're moving in. They're moving to proof of stake as a whole game changer, and all these things are. But we're really moving towards the utility of it all.
Yep.
But a lot of people seem to have this idealistic vision of this is going to change the world, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So my question is, if you look at the history of the U.S. government and trying to perpetuate democracy in the American way around the world since World War II, maybe before, do you think that crypto in the way it's going to evolve is not going to be beholden to any one group? I'm absolutely with you, okay? But do you think that crypto and the Web3 in particular is going to do more to change the world for better. I mean, look, women can drive in Saudi Arabia now. We made advancements in Afghanistan. Iran is about to blow up. Okay?
Yes.
And so, but a lot of this has in the past been the CIA and all this weird ass
Yeah.
stuff. But do you think that crypto is going to empower the youth to stand up and say, you know what, fuck that, I'm willing to die for my country?
Yes, 100%. Because I think the biggest thing is intimidation, and it's what's ingrained in us, right? From a societal standpoint, we're taught to fear the government, fear, what's bigger than us, listen, right? Listen to our elders from when we're kids, right? Crypto has really taught us that everything can change, everything can be redefined, and even the biggest institutions that were even responsible for the U.S. going down in 2008, where everyone lost their jobs, like the biggest institutions have so much control over our power, and now it's like, fuck you guys, we are taking that back. Again, things can coexist. I'm not saying that's going to replace the world as a currency as crypto is, but I think that it inspired people. NFTs, Web3 crypto, it's inspiring people to be able to be their own person, be their own banks, be their own artists, their own businesses, whatever it is. So everything you're saying, I do think there's a correlation, because I think the youth that's now after my generation is born in this. They don't know anything without it. I saw it evolve. I was born before the internet was created, before social media, before these kids, like, that's all they know. So I think that absolutely, that's going to empower people and inspire them to just take a stance and realize that just because something is a certain way doesn't mean you have to follow it. You can fuck shit up sometimes.
There is some controversy amongst various...
By the way, I don't know how you say that you're not knowledgeable, because you're very knowledgeable.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're like one of the best interviewers I've ever had.
Okay, but...
I was literally texting Alyssa. I'm like,
Dude, you're the best interviewer I've ever had.
There's
Like,
still a whole bunch of shit I don't understand, so I'm just...
no, dude, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this is really good, seriously.
So, there's a lot of controversy. I mean, we could talk about Charles and Cardano and Twitter, and just,
Yeah.
and some people are like...
He's sitting right there. No, I'm joking.
It's good for the industry, it's bad for the industry, it creates buzz for the industry, it brings people into it, it turns into a reality show. Like, there's all these opinions floating around about this whole, this is great, and we're all in it together, and we have to support each other, versus this, fuck you,
Yeah.
me and mine, and you're doing it wrong. And so where do you think, or what is that impact? Is that good? Is that bad? Does it matter? Does it affect things?
So taken out of context, what I'm saying can be either taken very badly or in the right way, right? I think those kinds of things can actually be good, because I think you need to be able to eliminate issues early on to learn from them and build upon them, right? So if you look at early email, people don't seem to remember this, but early email was, you click on a link, I'm getting scammed, I'm draining your bank account, I'm finding your kids. There was so many kidnappings in the 90s with the chat rooms and email. When I was growing up, it was like the internet is the fucking devil. I mean, there's old articles about talking about the internet as this like nirvana that's never gonna happen and all these things. Like, we had to go through all that for those companies to adopt security, and learn from our mistakes to move on and grow from it, right? I wish there was a way to do it where people wouldn't get hurt, where people wouldn't get scammed and everything. The harsh reality is we live in a world where most people are fucking shitty. And that's just how it is. That's the reality. And when there's a gold rush, when there's money involved, it attracts shitty people. It attracts greedy people. And as we're learning these things, and we are getting smarter as consumers, as creators, and everything it is, we have to go through the growing pains. You know what I mean? It's learning how to drive and bumping your car into a few walls before being able to drive straight. It's the same thing. So it's inevitable. We're not going to launch something that's perfect. And I think it's good that we're doing this, because every mistake that happens is growth. As people get smarter, people are like, before anyone used to click on every link. Now it's like, do not click on any links. Then it was like, I'm buying any NFTs blindly. Now it's like, do your research on the team. Doxing versus undoxing. Now it's not a, it's a consideration. Is this team doxed or not? Before, people didn't even think about asking that. They're like, oh, I'm just buying this online. You had no idea where it came from. We had to learn these things. We had to learn the mechanics, and then it helps us as creators to better understand what people need to be comfortable, what we can do to ensure that people are safe and long-term, and how we can educate people. We need to make those mistakes. So as much as they're painful, I think they're good for the long-term of the space. They're not good for the short-term, because what happens is that mainstream media just captures those. The people who don't have the best interest of Web3 at heart are going to capture the bad headlines, and that's all they're going to do.
Okay, I was going to ask you about proof of stake, but if I forget, remind me, because
Yeah.
these things just pop. I don't have written notes.
Yeah, of course.
But because you're going the direction you're going,
Yeah.
let's talk about that for a second. So, first of all, when you say crypto to somebody who's not really interested in it, it's a bad term now. It's actually counterproductive in many ways in some people's opinions. Agree?
Yeah, I have a collab I just got reached out with from like a brand I'm very excited in that we're doing a collab and everything. They're like, we're gonna do this thing, it's digital and you have access, and I'm like, awesome. And they're like, we can't call it an NFT or crypto. I'm like, the fuck? Like, that's what it is. They're like, we can't use that term. I'm like, okay, you're having my name associated to it and it's digital and it's I mean, sure, whatever, I respect it. But right now it's like very, to your point, very badly used.
Okay, so because a lot of people think, oh, dark web, and drugs, and Snapchat, and they put all this into this unregulated, decentralized,
Yeah.
Wild Wild West mentality.
Yeah.
So, what is it going to take, or do we need new terminology? Like, you know how they do the emoji cons where you have this group of people who say these are the new.
Yeah.
Do we need new terms and a Webster's dictionary for things that make it palatable for the guy who never is going to get this deep into it, but wants to maximize on the technology on some level and have it work in his life without having to fully understand it?
I just think, I don't think we need to change the term. I think we need to re-educate people around the context of the term and better understand it. I think a lot of people do not understand what NFT is. People think that NFT means digital art. It is not. It is a non-fungible token, which means if you take two $100 bills and you interchange them, they both have the same value. If you take two tokens that are non-fungible, you cannot swap them because they're different. So a lot of these people, they're like, I dropped an NFT and it's 1,000 identical pieces. Those are not NFTs, those are FTs. They're fungible tokens because you can interchange them, right? Unless they're numbered or whatever it is. Then there's nuances. But if you have two identical things, they're fungible, they're not non-fungible. And I think that things like that even us, like I'm never gonna go see a collection that has all identical pieces and be like, that's an FT. I'm never gonna say that, obviously. But I think it's really changing the context and educating people around those terms more so than changing the terms.
Okay, so what's an NFT for my house deed?
For which one?
If I have an NFT for my house deed, what is that called?
For your house key?
My house deed.
Oh, house deed. It's called it's house deed.
Okay.
But you have to,
It's a digital house deed. Do you get what I'm saying?
So?
Do you not think that terminology makes a difference? Words make a difference, and if you want the leading mortgage companies in this country to accept NFTs, you don't have to make it palatable to these old men who control everything.
Well, let me ask you something.
And to the common man who's never going to get that deep into it.
Yes, but let's say if I said, I'm sending you a message, are you gonna be like, define what it is, email, text, Telegram, Twitter, whatever. There are things that become general. That's what deeds are going to become because there's a point where they're all going to be digital. There will be some growing pains where we'll be like, okay, it's a digital deed or it's an NFT deed or whatever. Sure, I think the term is going to become digital everything, to be honest, because it's also longer to say NFT or whatever it is. I think naturally that'll happen, but I also don't think that everything needs to be hyper defined for like those examples. Like when things become comfortable, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll DM you. What platform? Like, I have no idea. Twitter, that's, you know what I mean? Like, we use a lot of these terms. So I think it's okay. I think it's okay to not have all the answers right away.
Great pushback. Love it. Because most people are on the other side of the fence.
They're like, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of throw out some word salad here. You go wherever you're going to go.
Cool.
Okay.
Love it.
So, Ethereum just...
You want to do my panel with me, dude? I'm in like 20 minutes. You want to just go up there with me?
Sure.
I'd much rather do that than have whoever the fuck
Sure,
you
I mean, we get to sit and have a conversation. I'm down for it, okay? You just got to bear with me. But like I said, I'm a beginner in this. I'm a smart guy, but there are things...
Are you sure you're a beginner? I figure Satoshi or some shit. Like, you like invented Bitcoin.
I started NFTs about a year and a half ago and started studying, but you will say a term and I'll be like, I don't know what the fuck that is.
Damn,
And I'll
dude.
stop and go, what
You're
does that
like
mean?
really
And then when
good.
you understand, but just follow my train of thought here because I don't know how much time to
Yeah.
this. So you have Ethereum,
Yeah.
just did proof of stake,
Mm-hmm.
and if I understand it correctly, basically Cardano took it from Ergo and said, okay, this works. They've proven it. Let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have the whole situation where it forks, and you have these limited number of verifiers, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's moving towards this, and it's the eco-friendly way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think there'll ever be a hybrid between the two? That a certain set of conditions say, wait.
Like
let's
proof
go
of work and
back
stake?
to Proof of work because of some sort of circumstances, and that at some point there'll be a hybrid that gives you a deeper level of security or has some advantage I don't quite understand. Again, I'm a beginner.
Yeah.
If there was an advantage to a hybrid that I'm not seeing, do you think there could ever be a hybrid type scenario?
To be honest, I don't know. When it comes to like the tech side, I'm not the most qualified for that. from like an outsider, or not outsider, I'm pretty inside, but you know, the whole concept of proof of stake was to minimize validations, right, and transaction numbers. So the idea of proof of work is that a lot of people have to validate these transactions that happen, and therefore it uses more energy, which hurts the environment and whatever. From my understanding, this whole proof of stake thing seems like the better solution. I am not equipped to confirm that. I trust the people that are saying that, and everything I've read makes sense to me. A hybrid, to me, seems like it could make sense. I just don't know. I have no idea.
So
What did anyone else answer? I'm curious.
you're the first person I asked the question to.
You like?
You're the first person I felt worthy to ask the question.
Well, thank you. I hope I didn't
If I'm
disappoint.
being totally
I hope I didn't
honest.
disappoint.
No, it's a great answer.
Because I have no fucking idea.
So, to me, if you're picking a verifier, should you not pick a verifier that you know, if it forks, can support that?
Yeah.
Has the money to back you? Especially if you're doing something on a large scale, or you're doing
Yeah.
something you think is going to have to scale up. I mean, is the verifier you pick important, or is it, hey, this is the lowest gas fee, I'm going here?
It's interesting. I think that, well, first of all, I think people are going to use what most people use, and they're going to listen. I think gas fees eventually will be close to non-existent, right? I look at gas fees as like shipping and handling, right? Like we still have them, and over time, like we've gone ways of shipping, and now Amazon, like over time, things will develop, right? So I think the gas fee situation is just, it's going to evolve and go away. In terms of the specific of the validations, from my understanding, like you need validations in order for this to be decentralized, right? Because it's people like you and me, or whatever it is. When you say people you know, you mean like I know that you're going to validate my transactions? Is that what you mean, or do you mean like?
Well, you have I believe on the Cardano platform, it's 3,000 qualified or pre-approved validation companies that can validate.
Oh, and you can choose like
Yeah, you
who
can
does your
choose.
mortgage, your
So there's
insurance.
300,000, I believe, is the number total.
Okay.
And so if I understand how it works, is if there's some sort of issue, there's this thing called forking, where all of a sudden they have to put up double the amount of currency
Yes.
to
Yes.
do this, okay? So if you are looking at creating a project and scalability becomes an issue, okay, so I'm doing this, but my God, if I end up on Good Morning America and it goes, I need to scale up. So is there this concept, or is there some sort of this verifiable company is better than this one because of sizability, or is it purely being driven in the industry by gas fees, which started a year ago when I first looked into this?
Yeah.
I didn't see the viability of it because the gas fees were so enormous.
That's a great question, and I think that if we do go that route, there will probably be companies that will grow and become that. I really do think so. I mean, think about it with like antiviruses, right? I mean, probably a weird subject, but McAfee was the one that, like, whatever happened. But I think yes, I think there is a point where that might be something that you do. That's really interesting. I've never even thought of that, but that's like, I think that could be far beyond the time where there's like companies that have ratings and they charge less or whatever it is, or it just becomes one big one that does everything and that just eats everyone else up, which is kind of less centralized now, but it's probably natural progression.
Yeah, but don't they become the Walmart of it? And you're like, I'm going to the small guy.
Yeah, but people are still using Walmart and Amazon.
Okay, so
Like some people might say like, fuck Amazon, but then they're gonna go order their toilet paper
sure,
on
how
Amazon.
many people went to Chick-fil-A after the controversy died down and said, yeah, the sandwich is good enough, whatever.
Yeah, they're like, I don't know, they might not be that,
Okay, but you know what I'm saying.
Of course.
You park your morals at the door.
5 minutes till you speak.
Okay,
Okay.
sorry.
Are you coming with me?
Sure, I will be more than glad to.
There's
Be
someone,
serious about it.
there, of course I'm serious. They put me with a guy on stage I've never met him before. You to
Okay,
kick,
so,
yeah.
okay,
we'll
so
kick,
last question here, and we can bring up some of these issues if you want to.
yeah.
But okay, so let's think 23andMe.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are like, oh, sure, a lot of us are.
Yeah.
Right, so at what point do I start saying, no, I want to control my digital wallet?
It's a
And more
choice.
importantly,
It's a
I wanna
choice.
control my child's digital wallet.
But it's a choice. No one is forcing you to go on 23andMe. That's the thing. It's a choice.
Sure. But
Right.
what I'm saying is in the digital wallet realm, at what point am I getting over my libertarian privacy-oriented issues and saying, no, this allows me to take back my digital identity from Google, from Yahoo,
Yeah.
from Facebook. And so at what point do we start converting the people who are paranoid, if you will, and understanding, no, this isn't an extension. This is not 23andMe. This is you taking back.
You owning your shit.
You owning your shit and you being able to determine who gets it and who doesn't, kind of like a case-by-case HIPAA law.
Let me ask you this though. I mean, I guess I'll answer, but I think that's great. MetaMask is owned by Consensus, which is a massive, massive corporation, right?
Okay.
MetaMask is arguably the most decentralized of them, more than Coinbase and everything, right? Wallet. But there is a level of centralization in the back end, right? And I think that's good because there's already a lot of problems with MetaMask. I can't imagine what they would be if there was no one even backing it because you have all your shit in there and one day someone's like, oh, I'm sick of paying for the server costs. And they turn the lights off, all of it's gone. So there needs to be someone behind it that has vested interest and long-term interest.
Okay, so again, you were the first person I feel worthy to answer this question. So decentralization and the concept of it is great, but it still needs to be market driven.
Is it because of my panels up? Is it 'cause- oh shit, I'm up in 3 minutes.
Yeah, so you should go.
Oh yeah, sorry.
I mean, if you're serious, I will.
I am 1000% serious.